G'day superstars, Peps and the ravishing Thommy Roker joining you for the 2023 pre-draft predictions, one club at a time, 2 minutes per club, simple, straight to the point. You're going to see a lot of these hitting the airwaves over the next couple of weeks, but we've decided we're keeping it short, we're keeping it smart, and we're keeping it above board. We call it the mini skirt preview. Like I said, long enough to cover the essentials, but short enough to keep you interested. So how we're working is we're going alphabetically. We're going to be talking about the need and the player that they're going to go for. I am not the expert when it comes to this. It is the great man on your screen, Thommy Roker, all the way from the Gold Coast. He loves his Gold Coast Suns. He is an absolute encyclopedia when it comes to him, but he is my draft guru. He has been for the last number of years, and we've thought we're going to get together. We're going to start with the Adelaide Crows in just a minute. We've got the 2-minute timer. We are going to get set into it. But Thommy, before we get into it, I want you to go a little bit of competition rules here, 25 words or less. What do you think about this year's draft crop? Is it as strong as people say? Is it as weak as people say? How do you sort of see it? And how have you sort of come to the conclusions with the players that you're going to go for each team?
So there's a definite clear consensus top 10 players, including the two Suns boys, Harley Reid and all the other fellas that everyone's well acquainted with. And then you're picking after that. It's a bit of a crapshoot. And the later you pick, the less likely that player is going to become a 100-game player. So teams are all in it to win it, but maybe 55 to 60 picks all up.
Yep. Now, once again, there are going to be gems in the rough. We know that somebody very deep in the draft is going to come out and dazzle. We've seen it many, many times. Like James Hird is always the one that comes up. Coxie off the rookie list. There's always going to be guns somewhere ripe. So hopefully you might be able to pick out someone that you might think, ooh, we might go down towards the back end, who you think might be the draft roughie, that if these players come onto, or clubs get onto this player, they are going to be set up pretty well. And if you've got a bolter, there's always a bolter. I know Lark's been mentioned quite recently as well too, that he might be one that they'll go for.
Leak's good.
Oh, Leak. So he's been shooting through a little bit as well too. But I really want to get knuckled down into this. So you ready to rock? 2 minutes ago. 2 minutes. I think we should be done in about 40 odd minutes. And we're going to chapterize this as well too. So you don't have to sift through all the teams. You can just go down to the chapters, look for your team, and look who Thommy is going to predict. Alrighty, great man. Let's start with the Adelaide Crows and go. Who do they need and who are they going to go with their first pick being at pick 10, just that borderline that you mentioned a moment ago?
Yeah, well, the Crows, this off-season, they've lost a bit of talent. So they lost Mackesy and Seedsman, unfortunately, to retirement. Duday and McAdam go. So with their picks, they got to pick 10, 14 and 20, all in that first round there. They'll all drift 2 or 3, 4 places due to bid matching, and I reckon that they'll go for a tall defender because they're pretty stretched there, and they did lose that player. So one of those guys like Ollie Murphy or something like that.
Yep, Tom Doday was obviously, even with his knee, went up to Brisbane, so that's a good get for them. That's probably their only sort of part at the moment where they're massively good up forward. Midfield's going to be ticking along nicely. It's just their back line is a bit thin. So you reckon that's what they're going to go for?
Yeah, they want to get some mids in there as well.
Yep.
But next year they've got Tyler Welsh coming in, so
they're going to be going all right. So the guy that you mentioned at 10, name again?
Ollie Murphy. He's a big 200-centimetre player. They just need someone like that.
Will he go straight in terms of play straight away?
Yeah, Chris Burgess will go straight in.
Yep.
Because he can do anything. He's Mr. Gadget.
Are you upset that he left Gold Coast?
Oh, he was never going to get a game.
No.
I love the guy. He's Mark Micken, who's an SA legend in footy back in the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
He says the best story he's ever seen in footy. He's come from country footy, missed all the junior pathways, made it to the big time, and now he's getting a second chance at the Crows. So good on him.
Good on him. All righty. Well, there's your Adelaide Crows. Big guy coming in, down back, won't play first year, potentially. Hey, stranger things have happened. Strange things have happened at this club. If we're going to have a look at the Brisbane Lions, played in a grand final this year, but unfortunately, when you have a look at their makeup, their first pick is at pick 30. Yeah. Is there anyone going to be left?
So the way the draft works is if a bid comes in, it adds a pick. But if the club matching that pick burns 2 or 3 or 4 picks, then all the rest of the picks come in. So the first 3, 4, 5 picks, it goes, but then eventually the 5th, 6th, 7th picks, they're really burning picks in the 40s and 50s en masse. So all the later picks come in. So by the time they get the Lions gets to pick 30, it's more like 36, but it might actually come in a little bit to whatever. So it's going to be somewhere around there. But I reckon they're going to trade up. They got 5 picks.
Yep.
They'll trade up to someone like the Suns at 24 who need points, not picks. And that's where they'll be looking for a player. But, I mean, what do you want if you're the Lions? Do you want a midfielder? Do you want another defender to replace Rich? I reckon they might even go for another tall, because they did lose young Tommy Fullerton to the old Demons. They might go for someone like Tao Jath, brother of CJ.
I was about to ask, is he the brother? Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's tied to them, but he won't go. He won't last until pick 41.
If he's anything like his brother, massive chance, because he's a good runner. Doesn't mind a bit of the physical stuff as well too. So Brisbane are renowned for being a bit tough around the balls, and they need that, especially losing Rich. They need someone, as they would say, with a long leg coming off half back, because that's the way that they play. They like to kick the ball. They like to be direct with their kicking, so they'll be looking for somebody with obviously good skills. Most clubs are going to be looking for that, but Brisbane, that's their one wood. So you reckon he's up to it?
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, then they could just get a ruckman and stick him in the VFL for a few years and see how they go.
So Brisbane are sort of at that point where it may not be this year that they really need to target someone. They've obviously picked up Doty. They did lose Fulton. We know we've spoken about a moment ago. It's not too devastated. Obviously, they picked up Ryan as well too. I think from Hawthorn as well.
They get another Ashcroft next year, Peps.
Perfect. So they can just bank it for next year. They might just use the pick or two, and maybe that's it.
He might play off the half-back flank as well.
Sweet.
Just really gets till one of the old fellas leaves the midfield, and then back up he goes, and then the boys just Dacos away.
So pretty much Brisbane, they might pick somebody up, but don't be too excited. They've got the Ashcroft coming in 2024. Look forward to that. Alrighty.
That's the way.
Let's get into the next one. We know about this club. They are the Carlton Football Club. Made a prelim this year. They've already brought in your mob, Elijah Hollins, all the way from the Gold Coast. They've got pick 22, so they are a bit deep in that. Tell us, who are they going to go for, and what play do they need? Because they've also picked up Fantasia as a free agent as well too, so not looking too bad.
I don't reckon that they'll be able to go past these ruckmen in the 20s here. So pick 22 could be 20, could be pick 22 will be in the second round, but it'll be maybe pick 30 by the time they get there. And so they'll be hoping that that one of these big ruckmen, or even someone like Archer Reed, who's the brother of Zach Reed. Yep. He's not Harley Reid's brother. Zach Reed's brother from the that they'll be looking for someone like that. They don't need a midfielder or a small forward or anything like that. The Blues they need height, which sounds funny because they sort of seem like a team who's recruited a bit of height.
They have, especially over the last. They've got Pitnet, they've got De Koning, they've got Mackay, so they have got their height running through. Do they need another one? Oh, Wiedering as well too. Has got a bit of height too. So, but seems to be the flavour of the month, isn't it? A bit of height. And if you're a bit of height and you're over 200 centimetres, you can play the midfield.
These picks in the 30s, they've got a roughly 50% chance of being a middling player.
Okay.
50% of these picks in the 30s will be out of the system in 5 years.
Okay. So who are you going with? Who is Carlton going to pick up, do you think, with their first pick? Like you said, it is 22 on paper, but that will get pushed out.
Yeah. So I'll go with Archer Reed, like I said in the start. He's a 203 centimetre key forward, but he'll be a defender like his little brother, his big brother.
Well, the biggest risk that a club took on grand final day was his brother. Hopefully, Carlton don't do the same with him. Rightio, we know about this mob. I was on the radio the other day, and they said something along the lines: if there was one song that you would not have to listen to ever again, what would it be? And it would be this one from the Collingwood theme song. Obviously, premiers in 2023. Just got over the line, depending which side of the table that you're sitting at. But they obviously used a first rounder to get Lockie Schultz across, which I know was a big investment, but I love everything that he brought. And they've got a first pick looking at 19. So just outside of that first round ring by the time everything else sort of comes into the play. But what are they going to go for? Because they look pretty good at the moment, the Pies.
Oh yeah. No, they do. Winning the grand final and only losing. Adams wasn't even in the grand final side, so you might say they want to get a midfielder. But this isn't a very strong draft for mids. But where they're picking, they might be looking at somebody like. Well, again, they're a team that could do with a guy like Will Green. He's a 204 centimetre ruckman from the Northern Knights. So that's around about their neighbourhood. Plenty of players have come from around there for the Pies in the past. They do like their Victorian players, and I do think that they need to park somebody in there as a developing ruck. But like Brisbane, they've just got so much going for them that they really can't miss.
Well, that's it. They've got Cox.
30-something.
He's 30-something. They've got Cameron. So they've got two big guys there.
Yeah.
So you're probably right. They'll definitely need a third just in case one of those goes down, because I know that McRae likes to play the two big boys every single week. So they do need a backup for that.
And they're screwed. So, they're not screwed, but you know what I mean. So I think they got Billy Frampton, and they're sort of. Collingwood like to develop a lot of rucks. I find it ironic that they used to have Jared Witts, Brodie Grundy, and Mason Cox in the same team, and they were garbage. And then they got rid of Witts and Grundy, and now all three of those guys are going to be first choice ruck next year.
Sometimes it's the parts and not the sum of them, as we look as well too. So the theme so far for the first few clubs has been tall, just talls, especially when the deeper that they get in, getting to talls in. Okay.
Very tall draft.
I like it. Rightio. Here's a club that we love to have a chat about every single year. They're one of our perennial favourites, even throughout the season. Essendon Football Club. We know that they've brought in a lot of people. Goldstein, Mackay, Gresham, Dersma. So they've had a pretty good off-season. Once again, depending on which way you look at it, etc. They're in a healthy position. They've got pick 9, first round. I know they've been trying to probably push up. Weren't able to because there are other clubs in a better position. But with pick 9 and then their next one and pick 31, who does Essendon have their eyes on, Mr. Roker? Go for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a good point, and I can't go past here is they're pick 9, but that'll be almost definitely pick 11. Now, remember I said there's a consensus top 10 players, and then after that, you can argue that there's another 15 players who are pretty good, but right down to the bottom of the draft, they're all going to be about the same quality. And so the Bombers here could be spoilers, like Sauce was a few years ago, and make two bids on two players they can't have in little Jakey Rogers from the Suns and Jordan Croft from the Dogs, before they go for someone like that fellow you mentioned before, James Leake.
Leakey.
And James Leake, 187 centimetre utility. So they could just bring him through the VFL and find out where his best spot is and just be a better team. And maybe by the end of the year, when they really need the troops to step up when they're heading for finals, which it looks like they will be, he'll be someone. He played a great series for the Allies. Yep. One of the reasons they won.
But what is it about this guy that's peaked in the last couple of weeks? Because, I'll be honest, I haven't heard his name mentioned virtually at all throughout the season. But then, was his combine results? Was it just the way he finished off the season? Was it
partly the combine? Yep. Yes. Partly the way he finished, because the Tasmanian team has an under 18s team in the Vic League, right? The juniors, what do they call them these days? The Coates Talent League. Yep. So all the big teams, big Metro and big country teams all play off. The teams from the north, the Northern Academies come down and play a few games. Yep. But Tasmania has been allowed in full time, so he's really had a good, and they were a very good team this year. And he's had a good end of season. The other thing is, mate, the national championships does gather a lot of interest, but until the whole AFL season's over, the people that matter don't really sit down and watch the video.
Yep, fair enough.
When I say the people that matter, of course, the people at the clubs who are making these decisions, they're all doing it the whole time. The people in the media,
UFC style, 10 seconds.
The people in the media have only just come up with this James Leake idea, and it's a very good one.
Oh, I like it. From what I've seen and from what I've heard, is he going to be the Smokey, you reckon? Is he the bolter? Or have you got somebody? He's the bolter. He's the bolter. He's the bolter. He's the new Clayton Oliver. No one heard about him, and then he could be a record. Oh, I'm excited for him. I'm excited for him. All right, Essendon supporters, you need to be. You could be leaking over the leak if everything goes to plan. Rightio. Talk about a club that's been leaking left, right, and centre. The Fremantle Dockers. Nobody wants to go there. Everybody wants to leave. What would you be doing if you were Fremantle right now? You've just lost Lachie Schultz completely out of nowhere. They're going completely backwards as a group. I thought they were going to take big steps this year, and they haven't. So, and what matters worse, their first pick is pick 34, and then they have another one at 46. So they're way down the food chain. Who would they need to get their eye? Look, they don't need anybody, but who would you think they've got their eyes on, and what type of player are they?
Yeah, no, where do you start with Freo? I mean, it doesn't matter what they need improvement on every line. I mean, they're very young, so whoever they bring in is going to improve them and probably play some senior footy. There's a fellow by the name of Ari Schoenmaker.
Okay.
Really
related to Ryan Schoenmaker?
No, because I think that was Schoenmaker's.
Sorry, don't know much about the shoemakers.
In fact, one of the commentators was calling him Schoenmaker because he thought he might be South African, which was a bit weird. From Tassie, got busted on the piss in the early season camp and got suspended for 10 games from junior footy. So
let me get this right. You can have a little bit of the beverages and get banned for 10. Get on the illicits like a certain Mr. Smith and have a month off. Yeah, pub test. No pun intended.
That was the just the junior level imposed thing because there's 17 and 18-year-olds and he brought booze in. Yeah. So they all got whacked, but he got the big whack because he went and bought it because he was 18. So because he's born on the 7th of January. So he took his 10 weeks off and went and played senior footy in Tassie. So nobody saw him until now. They're watching the replays of the tape and going, holy crap, 194-centimetre defender, rebounds, kicks at 70 metres, onto the chest of people like Jed Walter. Oh, gee, he's a good player, isn't he? I could have told you that when I watched
it feels like I'm looking in a mirror, Tommy. Is that how you used to do it when you were running around the paddocks up there?
I'm not a foot. I'm about half a foot shorter than that. So
it was just the lace-out bullets from 70 off the half-back line that just toasted opposition, toasted opposition forwards. Alrighty, so they're going to go for a big one. I tell you what, Fremantle, they've got the second lowest. They've got the second lowest list second lowest number of points going into the draft. The lowest is Port Adelaide with a massive 9 points. But they brought in Sweet, Soldo, Radigalia, and Zerk Thatcher. Fremantle got no one. So they're in real dire straits at the moment. So we'll see what happens.
The local boy comes through to their pick as well.
They'll just find whoever the best player at that stage is who lives in WA and just go with him because they could not have another person leave to go back to Victoria.
No.
Absolutely not. Rightio. Have a look at this mob, everybody. We call them the Geelong Football Club. They're sitting at pick 8. Now, we know that the retirement home came this year, and I think it's going to continue next year as well, too. So they need to bring a bit more life. They did bring some juniors, when I say juniors, some junior ranked players last year with that big haul of three first rounders, if you know what I mean. Who are they going to go for? And who would they be bringing in to replace, if that makes sense? Just a little bit differently because we know there's going to be some Geelong people falling off the perch shortly.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one because picking where they do, they might end up even with the last pick of that 10.
Yep.
So it might just be who's left. So is it, that little fella Nick Watson who a lot of teams say they want him, but come draft night, maybe they like someone who didn't think we're going to fall to them. Yep. Riley Sanders, who everyone's been talking about, who's a midfielder. It's pretty good, but is he top 5? Is he 8, 10? And he's from Tasmania too, and he's been playing in Victoria, so there's no real flight risk for him.
Yep.
We know it's not going to be Ethan Reid because he's going to go to the Suns, but they might be the ones to put a bid on him. But there's a player who didn't have a great career for Geelong, but he played for the Suns and the Cats and won 2 premierships with the Tigers by the name of Josh Caddy. And his nephew, Nate Caddy, is right there, right there. He's a tall forward at 193 centimetres, which is it's not quite the zone anymore. It used to be, not long ago, but now they want all their tall forwards to be over that sort of certain height. But we know there's a value in players who are that big because they tend to be runners and they tend to be, that type of guy who can run up the wings when they need to, take the marks and kick the goals.
And the interesting thing is, the way that I look at it is football is very sicklier. So we went very defence-like for so long. And then we've almost gone back to the 1997, 98 Malcolm Blight days where it was just fast-paced kicking goals. I don't care if they score 150 as long as we score 151 type setups as well too. So you don't have to have the big ones now because in 2 or 3 years it might shift where you maybe want one big and a lot of mediums around. So you just sort of can't decipher where things are going right now. But what I'd decipher is that you just go for the best player you can possibly get in a range that you know is going to make a difference in multiple positions. And he might be the one to go. I'd be surprised if he was there at 8/10. But if they get him there, that's going to be something that's just going to plug a hole in their lineups. That's going to be a nice one. Nice one. All right, Tommy, you're on fire so far, my friend. Time-wise, doing really, really well. So far, and once again, everybody who's been listening to us, watching us on YouTube, thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed, please do so because we bring this every single couple of weeks for you. The greatest content. None of that fluffy stuff that you see from the other guys. We bring you hard and fast facts because we like our footy lace out, and it's how you want your footy as well too. So make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button as well. Rightio. So, Geelong. That means that you know what we're talking about now, don't we? Just relax yourself here, my friend. The Gold Coast Suns. Now, we know that they're your perennial favourite. Gold Coast, we know what they've got. They've got a plethora of picks. We're not even going to worry about the numbers 24, 26, 27, 32, 36, and 38, which sounds like the Tats Lotto numbers. I reckon you should write those down and chuck in the supplementaries of maybe 33 and 35, and it'd be amazing if that came out. You're going for academy picks. So, who's going to be the first one that you're going with? I reckon everybody knows who it is, but who is going to be number one?
Jed Walter, maybe even at pick 1. I mean, you hope that he'll slide a little bit because it costs less points, but he's very, very, very good. And then there's Ethan Reid, who is also, but they're both being described as unicorns, and they're very good mates. Their mums are best mates. So it couldn't be a better story. They're 12, 15 years guaranteed at the Suns. Little Jakey Rogers, he's actually got some African heritage, which was interesting with some African players already at the Suns. And then there's a little-known player, not that little-known, I know him very well, by the name of Will Graham, who was number 1 out of these guys 2 years ago and then has had ACL problems. And then, but he came back and he's smashed it at the Combine. And they're saying that maybe there are clubs who are looking to pinch him and the Suns might not be able to afford him if they pick in the 20s. Okay. But I think the Suns are interested enough because they need a 186-centimetre inside midfielder to come through when people like David Swallow are going to go. But I'll tell you this for free, 5 Suns players in the draft is my prediction. There's a young bloke by the name of Nick Williams, who is a medium-tall defender, played the whole Allies. He's actually under 19s, but he's really come on this year. He's played senior footy, was unlucky not to be included in the VFL Grand Final winning side for the Suns. Can play against men, and he's that perfect dimmer size of that in the low 190s where they can play tall, they can play medium, and they can run. And most importantly, he's got the foot skills to get
the very big Camden McIntosh type.
Yeah, he may well involve when he gets a tank.
Yeah.
I'm actually going for more than 5, but 5 in the draft. They've got 6 senior spots, and so that tells you if they get a very, very late bid for someone, their 5th player, they can match it.
Yep.
And they'll either upgrade someone off the rookie list, or if there's a 6th bid and they really wanted that player, it could just be a record-breaking haul.
Well, I reckon you're right. because they wouldn't have invested that many picks in that second round. Like, they got 6 picks in the second round. I know things are going to get pushed out, but it's the points value of 3,877 that they've got at the moment that's going to...
And they'll trade those back.
Yep.
They'll trade all those back and get more points.
That's what I was about to say. There's a couple of them that they'll go, hey, you know what? You want this? We'll take that and get some more points. I know a couple of teams that you mentioned a little bit later on with, as an example, Brisbane got their 51 and 54. They're probably not going to do much with that. Hawthorn have got some later picks that they might want to use to get up because they've got a good pick and we're going to get into them very, very shortly. But you'd be pretty buoyant, mate. Got a new coach. You got a draft haul that is going to virtually set the club up. I know we've been saying that for a long, long time, but 2024 has to be the year for you, doesn't it? That you finally crack that final 8 and get in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring in a coach like Dimmer and you kind of expect an immediate bounce. So I think we'll see that. And maybe just even Dimmer's the kind of guy to take the AFL to task over the umpiring because the Suns just get flogged from pillar to post.
Time out. We're not here to talk about umpiring. We could spend a whole other episode about the umpiring side of things, all right? Just put the lid on, all right? The lid, I know. You've got the tea cozy on. It's about 400 degrees up there in Queensland. You're wearing a tea cozy.
It's about 12. It's freezing.
Oh,
I live on a mountain.
That's it. Put on the shorts. 12 degrees. Alrighty. You want to talk about a club that had an absolute cracking start getting the ground running. Adam Kingsley took over the GWS. Man, they had an exciting second half of the season. I went and saw them live in the finals this year, and they were absolutely sensational, and I think they're going to take it one step further. What's great about this, they've got 2 first-rounders as well, too. They've got 7 and 16. Are they going to be planning for the future, do you think? Because I know a couple of them are sort of pushing towards that higher echelon in terms of age bracket. So will they be trying to replenish those stocks? Because they didn't bring anyone virtually in from a trade period, which is interesting because they normally do have some sort of success with that. But they didn't this year. But they are sitting on the 6th line of points ranking as well, too, with 3,247.
Well, listen, they made a pretty decent trade last year with Richmond and picked up Richmond's first rounder for this year. So that's why they've got those 2 high picks. And there's a young bloke who I've been watching a lot because the Allies keeps coming up in this, but the Allies are probably looking at 5 top 10 picks. And they had 10 out of the top 20 AFL Academy players at the start of the year, and 5 of these guys were there. So, it's 5 from the small non-AFL states and territories, and there's 5 from the big 3 AFL states. So that tells you how strong they are. And this guy's name's Connor O'Sullivan. He's from country New South Wales.
Yep.
So in the old system, GWS would have had him in their academy. And so they must have had an eye on him because he's a 198 centimetre key defender. He can actually play forward and play anywhere. And they're saying that might be why he slides up and down the top 10. Some clubs might rate that, and other clubs might be like, well, we can get another bloke who's got similar attributes, but he's good in one position.
Yep.
But again, this pick 7, it's in that top 10, but it's going to slide to 9. So there's not going to be much to pick from really if they want those elite players, and that's an if, because of course the Giants, they're pretty well known for picking pretty well. They've got a very astute recruitment team up there.
Yeah, they've been good. And like I said, 7 and 16, they've just set themselves up perfectly for that first round as well too. And whether they want to, what they see at 16, if there's anything that they like, or they might make some moves with that later on. You never know. But GWS, like I said, they're in a really good position. Their midfield got humming for the first time in a long time this year. And I think they're going to continue that trend next year because they've got a crop of young kids that weren't able to break in. And they've still got Aaron Cadman that wasn't really dominating this year as well either. But he's just sitting there, biding his time to absolutely dominate. So I love what the Giants are doing, and they're going to get a couple of nice little spots as well too. And they're sitting in a really good spot, like I said, on the draft table as well too. All right. Hawthorn is who we want to have a look at next. The Hawthorn Football Club. The pick 4 is on the table. They are sitting in a absolutely gorgeous position, and they need to be because they haven't got anything else after that until 44, which could push out to maybe 47, 48, depending on father, sons, and academies and all that sort of stuff too. So where do you see Hawthorn? Who are they going to pick? Because they are getting a resistance. How can I say? Gorgeous player at the top of the food chain. That was crap. I didn't even know where I was going with that. But who are they going to go for?
Oh, mate.
Pista resistance. That's what I was looking for.
I mean, I think when we get further down, we're going to talk about the real top players here. And although Hawks have got that they started off with top pick 3, then North got the compo pick for McKay, and now we're going to see a bid on Walter,
yep.
And so the Hawks will end up with pick 5, which they'll be spewing about because they were coming last at a certain point of the year. But anyway, they're well out of the Harley Reid conversation now because they just don't have enough to trade up for him, although they would like to. So I think they should probably have a look at a fellow from Tasmania. Now, the Tasmania connection with Hawthorn has gone on for a long time, and they've ever since they went to Tasmania for all those games every year, they've won 4 flags. They're still going to be going to Tasmania until Tassie gets their own team.
Yep.
So they should pick up young Riley Sanders, who's done them a favour by, they've decided he's NGA for North Melbourne, but he's going to go about 35 picks too soon. And North just wanted to get him for nothing, but the AFL said no to that.
Well, they gave him everything else, and that's another story for another day.
Well, yes, it did. But he played this year for Sandringham, which is only just down the road from Hawthorn. So he would be a walk-up starter. He's a 185-centimetre midfielder, exactly what they need. Played really well for the Allies. Played really well in the under-18s, and I think he's worth a top 5 pick. Many would say a bit later, but this is that whole. The further along you get in that top 10, we don't know.
But he's also got some protection too. So he'll have Newcombe, he'll have Warple protecting him in that midfield as well too. So he won't have to be the hustle and bustle of a number of other first rounders over the years too, where they're going to have to get in and do the grunt work. And then like Patrick Cripps, perfect example, got smashed from pillar to post, and now as everything's starting to grind on for Carlton, he's starting to feel the effects of it too. So having given that protection around the ball does make it important for them. Alrighty, Hawthorn.
David Swallow says hello.
Who says that?
David Swallow. He just got bashed to bits in the first couple of years of his career.
And Carmichael Hunt, look what happened to him. All right, moving on to my mob, Melbourne Football Club. All right, my boys, the D's. They're actually in a good draft hand. They did bring in Fullerton and Billings over the off-season. But for a team that finished 6th, they're actually 4th in line with 3,475 points. But the big thing is that they've got 3 picks at the moment going into this draft, 6, 11, and 42. So who are they going to go with at number 6, which could potentially be 8, 9, depending on?
Mate, I want to give you a choice here. So either they throw the kitchen sink vis-a-vis pick 6, pick 11, pick 42, and next year's first rounder.
Yeah.
And not just for pick 1, but they only get pick 1 out of it, but get North Melbourne to chuck a few of their first rounders in there, swizzle it all up. Melbourne get Harley Reid, and both West Coast and North get more out of it than they put into it by sliding back.
Okay.
And so you would see West Coast just getting into 2 or 3, depends.
Yep.
But they just want Curtin. But they want a couple of those later picks from North that we'll get into in a bit.
Yep.
And North probably want more picks in the top 10 or the top 15. So if they can land picks 6 and 11, that's better than picks 18, 19 or whatever they're going to be. And then they get next year's first rounder.
And the other thing as well is that you don't really want West Coast trading the number 1 player to a club in a similar position to them.
No.
So you're better off giving it to somebody completely different. So you're going for Melbourne's first pick, there could be a shuffle, and they can get pick 1.
Absolutely. And it's on the cards, mate. It's on the cards.
And if that happens, that could be potentially Harley Reid. Will he make that much of a difference? We've spoken about this previously, but it's the first time his name's come up in this conversation. So
yeah, no, he will. He will. I think people are calling him a generational player. I'll say right now that remains to be seen, but he could play anywhere around the ground. And for a team like the D's and a coach like Goody, he can go, right, where are our weaknesses and how can we support a player like this? So probably put him on the half-back flank, see what he does from there.
They will have to get one lower pick, though, for father-son of Kynan Brown. They will need that. But
yes, that's probably a 42. I mean,
Yeah.
You can negotiate with that and that you just get a couple of their garbage picks.
We only need one garbage pick to pick up anyway. Bummer, best and fairest in the coats for his team. So, actually, he's Metro.
The picks you spend on a guy that you own don't have to be good. They just have to add up to what the opposition thinks they're worth, minus 20%.
Love a good bit of economics, especially when they finally go your way after we got pillaged.
You got a few coming, don't you?
Oh, I know. We're speaking about that. I'm looking forward to it. Alrighty. Now let's get into this mob. Like you talked about the Tats Lotto list for what was happening for Gold Coast. What about the Tats Lotto list that North Melbourne have got? 2, 3, 15, 17, 18. 5 first rounders.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say it. That's a disgrace. I will say it is a disgrace. The AFL should not have given them pick 3. And that's nothing against North. But I personally think compensation picks need to be scrapped.
Well,
and there's a reason why. Because they could
Tom Lynch was winning free agency. The Suns got pick 3. Now, you and I might think Tom Lynch is a bit overrated, but he was paid $2 million more than what Ben McKay's getting paid. And he was the captain of the club, and he went and won 2 flags straight away. Ben McKay, don't think he's going to win 2 flags straight away, is getting less, but but North got the same compo, and North and the Suns at those comparable times were in the same garbage heap, right? So it should have been pick 11. Don't punish the teams who didn't make finals. Teams who made finals, they're going to be punished anyway. So you put it at 11, and you say they're saying, oh, it's because he's only 25. Get real. He's born the same year as everyone else in his draft year.
Here's the way that I look at it, right? North Melbourne had the choice to keep him. They decided not to. You shouldn't not keep him, and then you get third pick. This is where the draft is stuffed in my eyes, is that there's too many ifs, buts, and maybes now being brought into it, which is causing all of this. It's too hard to work out, and it's losing the whole reason it was brought in, is that the lower end clubs get the first end of the first bite of the cherry, but not 5 bites of the cherry. And because one player leaves because he was offered a better contract, that you then get one straight after. That rule has to change, and I think it will. So who are they going to pick up North? Mind you, they need a lot, but who are they going to go for?
Those picks aren't going to be very good, right? Yep. The end of first round picks that they've got.
Yep.
They're no good. They're going to go drifting right out into the 20s, and it's only going to be their first 2 picks. If they keep them, it'll be 3 and 4. If they trade them, whatever. So we're talking about McKercher and Dersma seems to be the consensus 3rd and 4th pick. So it's going to be one or both of them.
Okay. So you think that there's going to be a deal closer to the night where that sort of shifts around, because North go, look, we don't really see any value in 15, 17, 18. Even though we've got them, let's see if we can shuffle those around, or maybe sell those off to West Coast and say, listen, if we package this and this, what could you give us? Or I don't know. Something has to happen.
I mentioned this in the 44th minute of our last podcast.
Yep.
And today, Fox News reported there'd be a 3-way trade between West Coast, North Melbourne, and the Demons.
And what did they go with?
Slightly different. They went with North still getting Reed. The whole point of the 3-club trade is that Reed ends up at Melbourne, and Melbourne spend everything they've ever had and will have to get it. No, because it's win now, and you want a bloke to come through like that. So, and West Coast and North just need players.
So McKercher and Dersma, one or hopefully both.
And if North do end up going to Tasmania,
yep,
McKercher's from down there.
It just worked perfectly for them, doesn't it? It just works perfectly. All right. Richmond sold the farm. Nothing grew. What do you do? What do you do if you're Richmond right now?
Yeah. Well, it was the worst draft hand at some point, but Port and Freo have managed to get under them for the worst for points wise. So they're just
But at
going
least
there.
Port did something. That's the thing. Like all Richmond have done have brought in Kijitski.
Yeah.
He's no Lynch.
They brought in a washout in Naismith, who's had 52 knee injuries in the last 6 years and done nothing, but had a good first half of the year in the VFL, so that's good enough to get on Richmond's list now. And not to put them down, they won 3 flags, Peps. So I think they were a bit delusional of the fans, because you can't come out to the fans and say, oh, there you go, we did that for you. You have to keep coming out and saying, yeah, we're going to win, but so good. But behind closed doors, they must be going, oh, man, we're just hemorrhaging experience, retired players. What are we going to do? And they're just going to be hard at work to try and just nail some of those mid to late, picks that they have been so very good at doing, which got them flags. But Jack Graves and players like that.
You're deep into the second round, though. Like, you're talking 31, 32. Like, they're going to have some diamonds just sitting in there that need to be, polished a little bit in the VFL. But there are ones. Yep. There are ones there.
If they think that ruck is what they need, they may find at 29 that they can get one of those guys, because there's a Western Australian fella, there's a South Australian bloke who's a bit of a they're using this term unicorn a bit too much for my liking, but his name's Taylor Goad, and he's a massive 206, and he's fast and agile, and he smashed the combine. So he's come out of nowhere. I don't know if he can play, but that doesn't matter for Richmond. They like to get these athletic types in to train them up to be a ruck. Young Sam Ryan is the example. He's a cricket player. Moved to Toowoomba, where I'm from, on a cricket scholarship. Started playing for the Lions in their academy because he's so tall, and now he plays first grade for Richmond as their backup ruck, and led to them getting rid of one of their premiership rucks. So, yeah, they probably need another little ruckman in there to just add to the mix.
Interesting. And you know what's happened? I've actually skipped a club. Did you know? Do you realise which club I skipped?
I didn't.
I skipped Port. I skipped Port Adelaide. Which Jamie's going to hate me that I've skipped Port Adelaide as well too. But so who do you think Richmond are going to go for? What was his name again? Deep down in the second round. I forgot Port.
And good luck naming a player who Port are going to get. I mean, geez, I can give you a name. But anyway, introduce them.
Okay, so for Port Adelaide, they've got 9 points to play with. They've got one pick in the draft, which is pick 73. They have to pick someone, don't they? They have to pick at least one player in the draft, which I think is a disgrace. You should be picking 3, which was the original rule. But I think that needs to go back to 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the reason that the Suns lost Oleg Markov last year was you got to have three senior spots.
Yep.
They lost Hugh Greenwood a couple of years before that, was making those 3 senior spots. So there's arguments for and against it, but I like the idea of the 3 picks. But I mean, that's what the rookie draft's for too. But anyway, they do have more than one pick. The picks keep going after 73.
I know they've got 112 and 130, but
I know those will come into 50.
But that's a disgrace in itself, though, isn't it? Let's be honest. How can you have there's potentially 238 spots on the board, and you're only going to have 50 players? 60, 50, 60.
We're such a copycat league. We copy the American draft systems and whatever, but they don't have these kinds of concessions. My belief is we should go the other way. Let the Victorian teams have some academies and make your own bloody players.
Well, we just go back to paper bags, mate.
Let's look at another unicorn in Ashton Moyer, who comes from Glenelg, and he's the fella who is just as good on his left as he is on his right, handballing and kicking. And so he made the news. He's a big media darling, and had him in the top 10 and all this. And then he didn't do anything all year. He's really gone. Woo.
He was sitting at, I think, 3-2-3 for a long time. And then year, I just scrolled down the page to find him. He was that deep.
So he'd be someone who they could get a future pick and dive into this year's round and go up and get it. And Glenelg's not too far from where Adelaide are based. The Crows and Port are actually like not quite as much close as Melbourne and Collingwood, but it's not like probably Carlton and Collingwood away.
It's pretty feral between the both of them. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but Glenelg's stuck in the middle of the two of them. So that'd be the kind of guy they go for, or just someone else who we don't really know about in the sandful, who that slides to their pick and they go, "You beauty, we'll take you, mate," and they wouldn't have to give up much to go far up the board, because if clubs have picked 3 or 4 players already and they've got a late pick, they probably want to chuff out of there. And if they get a future pick from Port Adelaide, good luck. But yeah, they'll probably only pick the one. They only have to pick one, and then they promote a couple of guys from their rookie list.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, this club, plenty of movers and shakers. It's been going on for a while now with this mob. They bring in Liam Emery. They bring in Paddy Dow. We're talking about the St Kilda Football Club, picking at 13, so not a bad spot. I know it's out of the magical top 10. That could go to maybe 15, 16 by the time it comes in. But they need something, because they look pretty one-dimensional towards the back end of the season.
Yeah. Oh, geez. They are hard. They are hard. They've kept their first-round pick, which is unusual for them sometimes. And they don't have a bad little suite of picks there. You can't pick what they're going to do. They'll go out and buy every player on the market. They'll do all these crazy things. They'll delist players or trade players that they should be keeping. I just don't know about them. But I guess when you have successive coaches and different list managers and footy managers,
they got
different
Sauce.
They got and Sauce is just Sauce. But let's give them a fair.
Give them a fair one. Give these Saints supporters some hope, Tommy.
I really like this guy who's not that sexy a pick, but he's by the name of George Stevens.
Ooh,
and
yes.
He's a medium-sized defender for the Rebels. They used to be called the Ballarat Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
They're the Greater Western Victoria. People like the GW, don't they? And he's not rated to go until the second round, so he could even fall to the second pick. But he seems like a real player that they'd love in there. But I'll give him another one that's going to be probably closer to where they will be picking. And they like Sandringham, don't they? And I've already used this guy, but he's pretty indicative, is Ollie Murphy.
Yep.
Ollie Murphy is a 200-centimetre key defender. And he's the kind of guy who, in that sort of 20s and in the teens and in the 20s, there's quite a few guys around that height, around that, that's the type that they need. So, but who knows? It could still be best available at pick 13, because it'll be probably more like 16 or 17.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Best available at pick 13.
Well, because of all these players that are already tied to other clubs, the pick drifts, but the bids come in. So, I wouldn't be surprised what they do, St Kilda. You think they need another midfielder and they go and get a small forward. You think they need a tall defender and they get
don't worry. If there's anybody at 180 centimetres and 80 kilos, he'll be on Essendon's list. So don't worry. Don't worry about picking any of those. I'll be on Essendon's list as well. Rightio. So St Kilda, a little bit of hope, but you just need something to fall your way. Can we talk about a team that has everything fallen their way? And they just make things happen. Imagine having an off season where you pick up James Jordan, Hamling, Grundy, and Adams, and you've also got pick 12.
Yeah,
Sydney Swans.
Not too bad, is it?
Not too bad. And who'd they lose? Buddy Franklin.
Yeah, and got rid of. They always when they get to this in this sort of, and they don't do it every single year. When they get in this sort of headspace, they really have a ruthless cut, and they get rid of some players who they've been bringing along for a few years who are getting good and might get a job somewhere else, but they just go, nah, you're gone, and off they go to the races. I mean, the thing with the Swans this year is that they do actually have a few good academy prospects. They're going to be later. And that's music to their ears, because that means that they can get into that first round in pick 12 there and pick a real player who's going to play a role for them. You'd imagine that they'd probably want a defender.
Yes, that's where they, especially with Lloyd and Rampy getting older, getting a bit long in the teeth, they definitely need someone down back.
Yeah, and there are some defenders there, but who gets them first is that they would also really like Connor O'Sullivan because he's the New South Wales boy, but I don't know if Connor lasts until pick 12 because I think GWS will get him earlier. But you never know. Jordan Croft would be a good pickup for them because they've got good forwards, but Western Bulldogs are going to match Jordan Croft. So that's that. So yeah, it's a real mix. There's a few players I'd like to mention. There's Caleb Windsor and Darcy Wilson who are midfielders who are from Victoria who could get picked up here.
Yep.
But it's a real unknown. Sydney could have their eye on a player who's much further back. Sydney could skip back to the 20s and trade with someone like whoever and get 2 picks, or they just want to get picks ahead.
So they might go, listen, if we don't find anybody we like at 12, we're not going to waste that. We'll just trade that off for somebody else, get 2 little bit later picks, and just go with the best available at that stage. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me with Sydney. They do that. They do that type of stuff on a semi-regular basis, don't they? They just go, look, you know what? If we don't get what we want, we'll just move back and we'll pick what's best available. It's like they do that with their trading. They get in and they get out. They don't fluff around over, do you want the pickles or you don't want the pickles? Like, come on, let's take 4 days to figure out if you want pickles on your burger. They just get in, they get out. They're doing an absolutely smashing job every single year as well too. So,
and they got academy kids coming through. Indy Kirk,
yep.
He'll be late, maybe even rookie. Caden Cleary, he was in the Allies. He was the 4th musketeer in the Allies midfield, which was just the best midfield in the comp. He'll be a steal because he'll be about 25 to 30.
Nice.
Very good little player.
We love a good steal. You know who's going to steal one player that I was hoping that we'd get our hands on? It's the Western Bulldogs. Second last club to go through before we go to the big bad booty daddy, which is the West Coast Eagles. Pick 5, 48, 50, 52. They bring in Harms. They bring in Caulfield as well too. They're sitting 8th on the points ranking of 3,194. I think I know the name that you're going to read out who they're going to go for at pick 5, Tommy. And it's a bit of a shame because I would have liked him. But if Melbourne put in all their bits and pieces into the pie for the Mr. Reid, I wouldn't be too phased if this guy did go to the Doggies. But how many small little ones do you need?
Oh, yeah. No, they'll go for the Wiz Watson. I mean, Hawthorn might go for him. But the Western Bulldogs have reportedly gone all the way up to pick 5 to get him.
Yep.
And it's 170 centimetres. So clubs are just risk averse. But there's one club who's not risk averse about the little fellas, and that's the Western Bulldogs.
Well, you have Waitman, Daniel, and Watson all in the same team. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, he's going to make Bevo look even more in trouble.
Bevo's a pretty small bloke too, isn't he?
He was a small bloke, but he had a crack too. That's the thing that you got to look at.
Well, that's the thing, right? He knows the little fellas have a crack.
But the Bulldogs have surrounded themselves. They've got rid of a lot of their assistant coaches. They've brought a lot of new experience in there as well too. So I think Bevo might be coaching a little bit differently. Stop the creativity and just play what we know.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that can happen in this draft in that early period. We know who the first few are going to be, but then from say 5 to 10, anything can happen. I think this is one of those years that Cal Toomey either he gets literally told who's picking who, or he might find there's an early surprise which really mixes up his order because he's very good, but no one's perfect, and teams do funny things. So teams could give up a whole lot to move up into say pick 4.
Yep. Like I've always said, Tommy, there's no I in team, but there's 5 in individual brilliance. Rightio. Last team of our profile, and we're taking us all, taking to the last team to get to that number one spot of being the West Coast Eagles. They got one, they've got 23. They brought in Matt Flynn and Brockman, so they've had an okay season so far on the offside of things. 44-68 on the point side of things as well too. Look, there's only one name that we can go with if they decide to go down Route A, which is Harley Reid, right? Number one.
100%.
But will they go that way?
I don't like it. But I guess the entertaining thing is that with the last couple of rounds of the year, the Harley Reid Cup sort of took a bit of a few twists and turns. So everyone's kind of hoping it'll have one last twist and turn. So that's why I really like the 3-club mega trade, which can still happen at any time up until the first pick is taken. And I do think that the D's are really well situated to do it. I can't really see, because Hawthorn just back there. What West Coast need, if they do choose to go with the number one player, they really need to land some nice picks. And from 23 out to 58, not going to be, any sure things. There's no sure thing anyway. But if they could somehow just send all those picks to North and just get something back that's a bit more in the zone where they need it to be, where the Western Australian players are. So Freo and West Coast need to do a bit of work, because there's 6 really good Western Australian players in that sort of top 40. And those players will want to stay at home, and those clubs will want at least 1 or 2 of those players each. And the way to get them is for West Coast to slip back a little bit and get Dan Curtin, and let North have Reid, or Melbourne have Reid, whichever way I
think the second option would be better.
Well, everyone's saying that Melbourne on their own or North on their own haven't offered enough. So put all 3 together, and I think
maybe. I just look, to be honest, I don't know the guy. You're not going to be a flight risk if you're surrounded by quality on the park. They don't have any quality on the park whatsoever. Sure. And so if I was West Coast, I'd be going, why would I pin my hopes on one kid who is probably going to get smashed? He's only really got Tim Kelly to protect him. And we know he can get injured at the drop of the hat. They need a couple. They need a couple, and they also need something for the future years as well too. They've got a rebuild coming. They have to accept we have to rebuild. Yep. And how can we get the most amount of value for what we need? They'd be stupid to give it all to North, but get something off North.
Yeah. So that's why 3-club trades exist. And if you've got one club that's willing to take a bit of bark, lose a bit of bark, which clearly the D's have said all along, all of this is our strategy is either to take 2 picks in the first round of the draft or to get into pick 1. Well, if that's the case and the price has just gone up, future first, which is going to, if they get Harley Reid, their grand final favourites immediately, and they should be top 3 favourites anyway with the list they've got, the troubles they've got. You reckon they probably sort that out? Maybe Reid's himself going to be the player in the end who's going to give it.
Yeah, just say stop.
If I'm him, I'd be quietly saying to West Coast and North, "You got me for 3 years," and then
Yep. Why not? So you think, look, the smart thing is for them to go to Curtin. Get the WA boy, get Curtin, shut them, go to sleep, draft over.
Well, Curtin's not going to solve all of their problems, but he's a swingman. He can play forward or back. He's good size. They've got Tommy Barris for a few more years. They've got Oscar Allen, who goes all right. They've got Jack Darling for however long. So if you're going to...
Flynn and Brockman, Matt Flynn's going to be all right for them, and Brockman's going to be nice. I know that Hawthorn wanted to try and keep him or get him something a little bit more for him, but they're going to go all right. They're going to go all right with those 2. So, but they just going to have to get 2. Why get 1? Get 2.
So
that's what they
could get a few of those WA boys that are sort of out in the late 20s where the North picks are, then they'll have the group that'll go through together.
Yep.
And I think that's the big thing. You look back at the teams that have had really good success. They've picked players in groups of 2 or 3 years apart, and they take them all through together, and they have all the success. You look at Geelong; they did it. All the big clubs do it, and West Coast need to rebuild.
They do all do it. So I'm going with Curtin. They'd be stupid not to take Curtin. Just go with Curtin. Simple as that.
Oh, 100% is what they need. Hey, listen, can we go through and just pick up on a few players we've been talking about a lot?
Yes, right. So this is the part. So all 18 clubs have done. Now we're going to our sort of bonus area about players that we haven't mentioned, but are going to be ones that you might surprise and be the Smokies or the Bolters, or the ones that you see completely come out of nowhere. All right, who you got, Tommy?
So, I mean, we've mentioned the top 5 of the set. You've got, your Harley Reid, Jed Walter, Zane Duursma, Colby McKercher, Dan Curtin, in whatever order the last couple
cards
are.
fall, yep.
And then you where do Sanders and Watson fall? Does Reid come a little bit earlier or a little bit later? And then you've got Caddy and O'Sullivan. So, I'm hoping that Ethan Reid kind of falls to the bottom of that 10 because no one's going to get him, but they could save the Suns a few points. Anyway, the ones that I wanted to really pick up on is Jordan Croft is a really highly rated player in this draft. Some people have got him rated as highly as top 10. And so the Dogs are going to get him, but the Dogs have also got NGA player by the name of, I keep calling him Lululemon, Luar Luamon.
Just call him Lululemon because it'd be easy for both of us.
And they're really hoping that he slips out to 41, so that's a good draft strategy for them. But they've got a lot of gaps to fill, so they'll be pretty active later on in the draft. They've got
another tall. Like Croft is another tall. Do they need another tall? They went with 4 talls this year. That didn't work, and we're going to have a 5th one.
Oh, don't forget though, some of those guys are getting on in age. So, and then Josh Bruce, he's gone. So, I don't know. I think with father sons, you kind of got to honour it and give it a go. And I'm
you're really getting a free hit with a father son, aren't you? You're pretty much getting a free hit.
Tim English is going to go. They'll be West Coast will come last again. They'll pick one for Tim English, and the Bulldogs will be off to the races. Yeah. It's pretty obvious to me, but who knows? Then you've got a couple of, I mentioned them very, very briefly. You've got little guys like Caleb Windsor, Darcy Wilson, Lance Collard is a guy from Western Australia who is small forward, obviously the Dockers and the Eagles would love to pick him up, but he's not linked to them right now because they don't have picks anywhere near there. Yep. There's Will McCabe, who is actually South Australian, but he is tied to the Hawks.
Luke McCabe, son.
Yes. So the Hawks' whole strategy is to pick early, get some points to match with McCabe. Yep. And then they've got, and we talked about him last episode, Culture Deer, father son to the Hawks, premiership player Paul Deer, nephew of Greg Deer, and he's a classy young bloke. And they've got Tau Jath, Chengukoth Jaths. I probably didn't say either of them right.
CJ, just keep it CJ.
And CJ. The Hawks would really love those two to be side by side, but Tau is, and I'm pretty sure I have got that right, is really coming in because they just love what happened with his brother, and he's making all the right moves. I did mention Caden Cleary, which he's on some sort of mock drafts and nowhere to be seen on some other mock drafts, but he's a real Swans type player. He gets in and under. You're bursting out of packs. He's gonna be playing for the Swans and probably pretty soon, and that he might slide all the way out to the 40s or 50s. And if that happens, they've got a cracker for nothing. And they've got a couple of other academy guys I mentioned. GWS have this fella Charlie McCormack, who he might even slip to the rookie draft. He's not even on the radar really, and he's a cracker. He's just this big, tall marking guy. I think he kicked 4 in one game in the Allies, and he'll just sit in the VFL for them for a couple of years until he either matures. But he's got this glorious hair and got everything that's going for them. So those are the sort of the father sons and the academy picks that'll go pretty high. That'll shape the draft and explains a bit more about those clubs' strategies.
Yep. It makes sense. I just think that, we need to have another session on this, but I just think it's compromised in so many different spots. It just needs to be tightened up a little bit and sort of get back to worst club, best pick, best club, least pick, and then sort of simplify it a lot more, because NGA, IGA, TAA, all these different academies that they have, it's really confusing to try and work it all out. It just used to be father-sons. The rookie draft isn't what it needs. The rookie spots aren't what they were designed for. They've gone completely shit wide. So that needs to be redone as well too. So there's just so many things within the way that the draft and the list spots, it's just confusing. They can't even decide whether they want a sub or 5 people on the bench. Some clubs want a sub, some people want 5. Just make a 5 on the bench and leave it like that. But it started with 2, went to 3, went to 4, now they want the 5. Can we just make a decision?
The AFL commissioner job was up for grabs recently, but you didn't go for it, Peps?
Calm down. I'd rather be a dad of a 15-year-old daughter. That's easier than being in the AFL commission. Tommy, can I say once again, you've absolutely smashed this. I know we've gone just over an hour. We've gone through every single club. We've gone through our bolters. We have gone through everything leading up to the draft, which is in just over 2 weeks' time. It's going to be, I can't wait, because that first round is going to be a sight for sore eyes. It's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to see what happens with that pick 1 in the next couple of weeks. Will they, won't they?
Yeah,
it's going to be fascinating. So, Thommy Roker, everybody, an absolute superstar. If you've liked the video, leave a comment below. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell, tell everybody about Lace Out, because we produce the content that you want, because it's how you want your footy, Lace Out style. I'm your host, Chris Pepper. Magnificent Tom Roker. We will be back after the draft to give you our little wrap up on what caught our eye, what surprised us, and what disappointed us as well too. So we can't wait for that one. So thank you everybody for looking, viewing, watching us, and more importantly, Thommy Roker, superstar. But the last question we have to finish. It's simple. You love it. This is the whole point that you come on the show. Is Tom Roker, Gold Coast Sun fanatic superstar, how do you want your footy?
Just like Baby Yoda. Lace out.
Oh, well, if you want to talk about it that way, we stuck it right up them. Lace Out merch. If you want some, let us know in the comments. Take care, everybody. Enjoy.